just wanted to share a quote with you before we get started. And it's from Margaret Mead. So she talks about never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. And that's important, right? So Margaret Mead is known for revolutionizing public education and working in other countries and just really trying to get at the heart of those communities and addressing their needs. And that's the work that we do, right, in our individual leagues across the nation. So tonight, and I'm talking fast because I have a lot of ground to cover, and as Sandra already shared, we want to respect your time. So we're gonna work through some scenarios and talk about how do we engage our community, right? So we're going to understand the traits that define effective leadership in a nonprofit organization. And along with that, thinking, adaptability, strategic thinking, in fact, collaboration, resource management are those spokes in the wheel that make that happen. And we're going to share and explore some of our common challenges. And then how do we go about engaging people and managing change? And then if you would like, share any obstacles you have, including fundraising. And then at the very end, I'm going to give everybody a charge. And so that charge is going to be, how will we go about advancing leadership and engaging folks in the nonprofit sector and build those opportunities to mentor and grow our networks and strengthen impact. So that's on the menu for tonight. And I'm going to sync my watch. We're at 6:07. And I'll try to moderate the time, because what I want you all to do is to be able to talk about what it is that constitutes strong nonprofit leadership, right? And then we're going to go through a couple of case studies, and we're going to unpack those case studies and talk about effective and ineffective nonprofit leadership. And then finally, like I said, I'm going to give you a charge. So just a little bit about myself. I'm a trainer by trade. I have retired from a 9 to 5, but I still continue to do that work. I'm actually a certified coach. I'm a professor. I write, I speak publicly. I'm in fact the director of leadership for a doctoral program, assistant director for a doctoral program at the University of Maryland, and I'm the director for an administrator certification program at the University of Maryland. And then when I have time to catch my breath, I write grants, and please feel free to reach out to me. I actually am pretty good at it and have won over $60 million in grants, and in fact, just won a grant most recently for $9 million. But all the work that I do goes back to the public, so it doesn't generate revenue. I'm at the heart of the work that I do. It's around nonprofit and galvanizing the community, and so that's what I'm about. And on top of that, I've worked as an AQUIP commissioner, and also, most importantly, a mom, a wife, and a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. So as you can see, my plate's quite full, but I can't start without giving my why. And the work that we do with the Junior League is grounded in the belief that others around us can be impacted by the work that we do, right? And so for me, my why, and why I'm sitting here today, retired and able to use my time to help my community, rests in the hands of my 11th grade English teacher. And I always just want to give credit to her for helping me to reach my greatest potential. And a lot of us on the Zoom can say the same thing, right? How we've had a resource in our life or a person that's truly touched us. And so, and this is a page from my yearbook. Just think about that. I won't tell my age, but fast forward decades, and I'm still talking about how she made me feel valued. And that's what effective nonprofit leadership does. So if you could, I want to give you a quick startup. So in the chat, if you could, please share what you feel are the most important behaviors for effective leadership in a nonprofit organization. And there's no right answer. You don't have to Google it. You don't have to go to ChatGPT. Honestly, what do you feel are the most important behaviors? I'd love to hear your ideas. So just put them in the chat, and don't be shy. All right. So I'm hearing some great ideas, and I love what I'm seeing, because in the past, leadership really talked about managerial functions, right? But a lot of the work that you guys are saying are important to leadership, they really talk about those, we used to call them soft skills, but those are those connecting skills. Anybody want to share? And Ariel, I see you smiling. What did you put down for your things that you think are most important for a leader? Ariel Thompson.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, I was trying to find the mute button. I say communication as one, as well as authenticity is also really important to me.
Right. Yeah.
But
And
I
that
hate
kind of, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. What were you saying?
if I would have thought of empathy, I would have put it in there as a top trait for me as well.
Yeah. And what you said kind of goes along with that. How about you, Susan Langley? I'm sorry.
I put appreciation. I mean, just being told thank you is huge. And I'm coming from a client service side versus the nonprofit, but it works for the nonprofit too. So it's just knowing that someone sees what you're doing and appreciates it.
I'm glad that you put that, and I know I have to keep to my agenda, but that appreciation goes a long way. When we had a group of leaders we were training, and they had a homework assignment, and they had to write thank you notes to their teams. And it was right around the holidays, and people get all anxious and very emotional around the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas. But we did that for Thanksgiving. They had to write personal handwritten thank you notes to their teams and tell them why they felt they were valued and important. And do you know that when they came back in December, we met with this group of leaders monthly. They said that was one of the most impactful activities that they had done. And at the end of the year, the staff were still talking about the time that they took to personally thank them. So thank you for sharing. And Amber, I'm going to circle back around to you. So I don't know if you're driving or not, but I want everybody to fully engage. But the data tells us when we think about the work that we do or aspire to do as aspiring leaders, between 44 and 71% of nonprofit leaders are unable to improve performance and leadership skills and service delivery capabilities of the teams that they work with. So 44 and 71%. So just to think between that margin, it's close to half or a little over half they're unable to engage. So this is a dilemma that we confront, right? When we think about working with others and the ladies that are inside of our league. So why do you think that happens? Why do you think that it's hard for us to engage folks as leaders in the nonprofit industry? Whether it's your league or you work for a nonprofit, this could also associate itself with other aspects of nonprofit work, such as church or in your communities or in schools. Talk to us about that. Why do you think that happens? We talked about what's needed, but why do you think that happens? Monique Conway, a lady after my own heart. Monique, where are you? Talk to us about that storytelling. It's important. Are you an educator? You're on mute.
I'm a director of marketing.
Oh, wow. So talk to us about that storytelling.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of time, right? Like the most urgent thing is what makes its way to the top. And that's often an ask, whether it is like for a donation or to attend an event. But we're always asking of something rather than sharing the beautiful stories of what are happening like around us all day, every day.
Yeah, that context is important, right? One more share. Kathleen, you're smiling. What did you write in the chat?
This isn't my junior league, but in the workplace, I feel as though my directors do underestimate their team members' ability to learn.
Wow. And you know what the research is telling us is that people, and I talked about soft skills versus managerial leadership, the research says that people are more committed to the work when they feel there's an emotional attachment. And so when we're inside of our leagues or we're in our workspaces or we're in our families, we have to make those people connections and not only think about bottom lines like strategic plans and fundraising goals. We have to make that human connection. So I love what you just shared. So let's get into a quick activity. And looking at the time, we're good for time, and I want to leave any time that we do have for you all to be able to engage in work. So when we think about, I asked you all to put in the chat what happens and why do you think there's this disengagement or it's such a struggle. And so the research shows that oftentimes when the nonprofit organizations such as ours are confronted with barriers, for lack of a better term, it's often contributed to high turnover, right? A lack of investment where we don't see the residual. So we bring them in, we recruit them in, and they go through the process, but there may be high turnover. And some of that is attributed to burnout. And then when we think about balancing of responsibilities and interests, that can also be a challenge. Even tonight, you want to receive professional development, but some of us are multitasking and doing other things. And that happens in our leagues, right? And sometimes when we think about the vision and the mission, sometimes the priorities are different. And that could create a juxtaposition where there's an imbalance, right? And sometimes that may lead to conflicts. And so we do have to think about the work that we do and some of the ideas that you shared in the couple of activities that we've done, where we make those personal connections and we think about the work that's important to make sure that it is successful. And so we don't want to get into that space where people feel like this is the same old, same old. Our community's changing, but we're not changing. We need more innovative leadership, right? So those are some of the things that the research is showing. And then as you can see on the bottom of the screen, that comes from a text called Challenges That Get in the Way of Leadership or Leaders in the Nonprofit Organization. And then most importantly, lack of professional development. I really have to take my hat off to the Junior League because this is an organization that values our growth and goes above and beyond. And I want to thank you personally, Sandra, for all of the support that you provided and the guidance in getting us to this space where we can talk about the work. It's much appreciated. So when we think about those domains that are necessary for us to be effective leaders, the research shows in that work it's around how do we orient ourselves around our priorities, right? How are we aligned? So are we visionary in our purpose and strategic in our actions? And then when you think about people and human capital and then things that happen, how adaptable are we? So we have to think about always being adaptable in our work. And the people are essential. Collaboration, right? Collaboration is key. So that's what strong nonprofit leadership is. And then I'll leave you with the last two. I think 5 and 2 go hand in hand, side by side. But how resourceful are you and how innovative are you? And the key word that we always use in leadership is, can we pivot, right? So how can you bring resources and other partnerships? And some of our leagues are really good at doing this. And others of us are still working our way through that process. But how can we unify our communities and leverage our strengths, right? And then most important, how resilient are we when we're confronted with change? So I want you to think about those. And I'm just going to leave them on the screen one more second before we go into one of our activities. In fact, I want you to even imagine yourself, and let me define what these are so that I can give you a better sense of what they mean. And these key traits, they actually come from the Journal of Nonprofit Education and Leadership. And so let me unpack those. So I already shared that adaptability is one of those. Adaptability means the ability to adjust your strategies and approaches based on change. Think of changes that you're confronted with when you think about your leadership practice and or your league. Collaboration, that's a no-brainer, right? But more essentially, the key word there is understanding. So it's not only that we share, but it's about understanding. And how do we do that? How well do we do that inside of an organization? I shared resilience, right? The capacity to recover. The key word here, I should highlight it, is quickly. When we are confronted with obstacles, difficulties, and when we get off focus. A lot of times we have our strategic plans, but then real life happens. And then how do we maintain focus and momentum, right? And a lot of that happens through visionary thinking. Our ability to foresee having that foresight to anticipate what our communities and our organization and leagues need so we can be able to be highly effective in the long term. That visionary thinking is sometimes hard, I will honestly say. And then most importantly, how resourceful are we? It's the ability to maximize impact, and I apologize for the typo, but it's the ability to maximize impact. And oftentimes with limited resources as nonprofits, you well know, we may have limitations on resources, particularly funding streams or manpower resources, right? So how can we think creatively and solve problems efficiently? And then most importantly, those partnerships. How do we go about advancing the work in those partnerships? So I want you to think about those, and I'm going to leave those definitions on the screen. If you have your cell phone, feel free to take a picture of it because you're going to need them. And I'll put them in the chat as well. Give you a second. So what I want you to do, we know that these are essential to being highly effective in a nonprofit world. How would you rate yourself on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Weak to strong. And in fact, let me stop share and I'll put these in the chat so you can cut and paste them. How would you rate yourself? And this is a no judgment zone. We're all here to grow and learn. So please remember, one of our norms was to be vulnerable. And the only way you're going to grow is to always be thinking about areas for opportunity for growth. And so how would you, on a scale of 1 to 5, but how would you rate yourselves? Hey, Kim, how are you, lovely? Kim Kendrick, I see you. How would you rate yourself when you think about your capacity as a leader? And Kim, I can't hear you. You're on mute. What were you saying? All right, we'll let her figure that out. So 5, 1 being weak or area for growth, and 5 being the strongest. Oh, there we are. Okay, Kim, what were you saying?
Sorry, I was driving home as fast, but as safely as I could to get here in time. So I apologize for my tardiness. Do you want us to put that in the chat?
Yeah, so take your cursor and copy what I wrote, the 5 traits of effective nonprofit leadership. Just copy them and then paste them in a new chat. And how would you rate yourself?
I guess my biggest question is resilience is, how would you I guess we just went over that, didn't we?
Yeah, but no. And I'm going fast because
I'm
we're
a-
going to hour together. So resilience means how quickly can you recover in your organization or your league? And remember, my committee is personal and professional development. So when you're listening to me talk, think about your families, think about your loved ones, think about your job, think about, the league, and as a whole person. So when I do leadership training, I could be doing it for University of Maryland. I could be doing it for a group of politicians. I could be doing it for my league. When I train, I want you to always think about your imprint in society. So you don't only have to think about the league. Think about the broader goals too, as well. So Joanna, visionary nonprofit leadership. You want to give us a little bit of insight into your thinking, or Courtney? Because you guys were around a 2 or 3, hovering around there. The visionary piece, that's a little bit of an area for growth for you?
Yeah. It's not my strongest point.
And so is it, do you, this could go on for hours, but a lot of times it also has something to do with circumstances, and it also could do with how you are structuring a project or task that's given to you. But it's good that you recognize that. I know for me, that used to be an area for opportunity, we want to say for growth, because in the environment that I was in, I was always, I don't want to say told, but always given the parameters. And so when you're spoon fed or told this is how we do things, it doesn't lend itself to you being creative, right? Anybody else want to talk about their score for visionary? Oh, Kim, please. And I said, just raise your hand. I like you, Kim.
I thought I was going to jump out with something else. I guess one of the struggles I had with this is not only can I do it, I can do it, but what causes me the most stress? So I put, where'd mine go? There it is. Visionary, I had my strongest, because that doesn't, to just plan, like at the beginning of an event, if I'm thinking about like doing an event for Junior League, okay. So I'm visioning does not cause me stress. So that's how
but the resiliency does? You seem like you have quite the
so okay, so here we go. I was doing Touch a Truck and the dang fire truck's not here. Like, where is the fire truck? It's like the main show, right? So I'm on the phone calling the city. Thank God I got some. So my stress level, okay. So the fire truck's on his, hey, this is Cam being all nice, you know, because fire truck's not here. Oh, we'll send it in a while. I'm like, no, like we start in 15 minutes. It needs to be here. You know, my heart rate, my stress level goes up. I deal with it. And I got them here just as soon as I could and everything. But boy, my heart rate was going and I was like, I didn't cry though. I did not cry.
Isn't that always important? Susan's nodding like yes.
Did not cry. But man, I was like, oh, thank you so much. Oh, we appreciate you. We love you. I was like kissing as much booty as I could to get them there. But that's when things don't go right at the last minute. My stress is pretty high.
I'm glad you recognize that. That's important. That's what tonight is all about. So I'm going to stretch you. So everyone, you have your lists. And I'm not going to call in everyone, you know, for lack of time. So Ariel and Joanna had visionary. I really want us to make sure that we kind of hone in on, let's call it an area that you want to stretch and grow in. So, oh my goodness, Kathleen, I love that. Collaborative decision making. You must be old school or new school because, you know, some of these millennials, they have their minds made up. So what I want you to do, of these 5 that we know are effective skills for nonprofit leadership, I want you to pick one that you want to either capitalize on, because sometimes you can take one of the ones that you're strong at and push it into an area for weakness, right? And so if you're really strong in resourcefulness, that very well could help you if you have issues around collaborative decision making, right? So you can take 2, merge them together. But we're not going to get into solutions yet. We're going to look at which one we want to focus on. And so we have 30 minutes. I want to walk through 2 scenarios, and we're going to really look at how these leaders share a situation that they're working with and how we see their leadership moves. And then at the end, we're going to actually task ourselves with what do we want to work on to improve. And so you guys have your rankings here. Pick one that you want to focus on and grow in. And it's interesting. A lot of us have 3s for visionary. And that collaborative decision making, we have a lot of 3s there too. Yeah. And that resilience, right, ladies? So make note of the area that you scored, the areas that you scored, you self-rated, where you may have space to grow in, okay? So make sure you write that down. The chat's not going anywhere, but let's get started. Let's go through 2 scenarios. I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully you can hear the audio. Fingers crossed. So let's do the first scenario, and then I want you to be keeping in mind those traits. And this person is going to share a project that she's working on, and we're going to really think about and talk about what we heard. All right, let's see.
Hi, everyone. I'm Samantha, and I serve as the Mentorship Committee Chair for my league. My role is to lead my committee in implementing mentorship programs for underprivileged youth. When I first started, our committee was strong, people showed up consistently, they were passionate, and they were engaged. But lately, something has changed. People are canceling shifts at the last minute. Some aren't even responding to emails, and attendance at our meetings has dropped. Even some of our most committed volunteers are starting to disappear. At first, I assumed people were just busy, but the pattern has continued for months. Finally, I reached out to a few longtime volunteers to get honest feedback. What I heard really caught me off guard. Many committee members said they feel disconnected from leadership. They don't feel like their contributions are acknowledged, and some even feel like their voices don't matter when it comes to decisions about the program. They love our mission, but they're feeling unseen and unappreciated. Now I realize this is a bigger issue than I thought. If I don't take action, we risk losing more volunteers, and ultimately, our ability to serve our community could suffer. I need to turn this around, but where do I start? How do I rebuild trust, boost engagement, and make sure our volunteers feel valued again?
All right, so Samantha shared her issue. So anybody want to summarize? And I think I have a script so you can have it in front of you too, you guys. I think I have a narrative. Transcript, I do. I'm going to put it in the chat. So you can also read what she said as well. So some of the folks off camera, what did you hear? What's Samantha struggling with? Something that we all are confronted with. What did you hear in that video, that vignette, case study number 1? Hey, Crystal. What did you hear? Some of the folks off camera. What is Samantha struggling with? And I also put this transcript in the chat.
I think one of the things was not engaging with the group to kind of see what the root cause was sooner, you know, when she started feeling like people weren't showing up.
And Aries, what a beautiful name. So Aries, what did you want to share what you wrote in the chat?
Hi, I just said the members didn't feel appreciated or the mission, so that drove the numbers to come down in the participation.
Yeah. One more share, and then I want to put you guys in rooms. I'm going to just randomly put you in rooms for 5 minutes to talk it out. One more share. What did you hear?
I thought that it sounded that the members were not engaged, meaning responsible for what they were doing. I mean, they were volunteers, but they weren't included in running whatever the project is. Like, they didn't have responsibilities to be accountable, so they didn't feel like what they were doing. It just showed up, and that was it. It was like not a. It didn't delegate where they were delegating to the members versus having one person just run the whole thing the same way they do it all the time, and then it just kept spiraling out.
Now, remember, it said there are barriers that people confront, that burnout, right? The imbalance of power. And then we know, and some of us, a lot of us put 3s as our own areas for growth around collaborative decision-making. So I'm going to give you some questions, and I'm going to put you in rooms. We're going to talk it out a little bit, and it's going to be a random selection. So I'm going to give you 3 questions. What are the key issues causing disengagement? What do you think they are? And some of them we've already shared. But more importantly, in fact, we don't even have that. Well, we'll try. We'll start with question number 2. What steps could Samantha take to improve morale and retention? And how can her leadership or leadership in general foster a culture of appreciation and inclusion among volunteers? Now, remember, you have the script, if you forgot what she said in the video, and then answer questions 2 and 3. I'll give you about 5 minutes, and then we're going to come back and you're going to share what you discussed, okay? So I'm going to randomly put you guys in rooms. So it's 6:39. I'm going to bring you guys back in 5 minutes, and you're going to address those 2 questions in each room. Please be prepared to share out. So welcome back from our first breakout room. So I'd love to hear what you all talked about in your breakout room. Susan, you were going to share?
Yes, room 8, which is Tracy and Aries. We talked about engaging the volunteers with some sort of an appreciation or system, but some way to tell them thank you.
Yeah.
that their work is important, and then also somehow meeting to get to the root of what's going on. Do some sort of a low-key, either social type or a town hall meeting to kind of get the information out to find out what's really going on with the members.
First, scratch that surface, right? You got to see what's really going on. And relationships are going to be key to that. So how do we go about fostering a culture of appreciation so that everyone feels included and a part of decision making? Somebody want to share? How about you, Hannah?
Sorry, I was coming off of mute. We didn't quite get to this question, but yeah, one of the things that I actually had the realization, similar to Samantha, kind of experiencing similar things, but the fact that she went back and had conversations, I think, on an individual level, because one thing that we did talk about is seasonality within our leagues kind of varies a lot. And even Katie and I were talking, we're in the same league and we kind of experience opposite seasons where we have more participation or less. So I think it can vary even within a league. And so just to foster more of like, I think like a one-on-one, get to know the people and understand kind of where they're at in their life, because they might have things going on that they just can't participate as much in one season compared to another. And then kind of to Susan's point, like, are there ways that we can entice people to, or like reward them for participating? Just even like little shout outs. I think people feel valued when you show appreciation. So
yeah. The work and the needs of our community are such that for many of us, it's a part-time job, right? It takes a lot of time. And then sometimes people feel overwhelmed, right? And we don't want the small few to do all of the work. And so we have to create a space where everyone feels valued and we can have honest conversations about levels of support. And I love what you said, Hannah, about that one-on-one. So now let's listen to one more scenario. We have 11 more minutes and we can do it, ladies. All right, so fingers crossed again. Share my screen. We're going to watch one video. And in fact, before we do, let me put the questions so you can be thinking about the questions. So in this scenario, we're actually going to be hearing from Deborah, and she has most recently become the chair of her league's adult literacy program. And so they fear that that there's been some changes and the quality of the interactions between the league members and the students is suffering. So what I want you to think about, how should Deborah address some of the issues that she's confronted with, and what communication strategies can she use? And also, most importantly, how can nonprofit leaders ensure that there's a smooth transition when we do make changes? So I want you to be thinking about those questions, and let me start the next video. It's only 1 minute long. Let's see, here we go. Scenario number 2.
Hello, ladies. My name is Deborah, and I recently became the committee chair for our league's adult literacy program. One of my main goals is to expand our reach by introducing a hybrid learning model, offering virtual tutoring sessions alongside our traditional in-person programs. I believe this will allow us to serve more people, especially those who struggle with transportation or scheduling conflicts. But ever since I announced the new strategy, I've been facing pushback. Many of our longtime league members and local volunteers are skeptical. They worry that virtual learning won't be as effective as in-person tutoring, and some are afraid they don't have the technical skills to adapt. The resistance is growing, morale is low, and a few key volunteers have already left. Some staff members are openly frustrated, and I'm starting to feel like I might be losing their trust. I know this change is necessary for the future of our organization, but if I don't address these concerns effectively, we risk alienating the very people who help us serve our community. How do I reassure my committee? How do I lead them through this transition without creating more resistance? And how can I make sure everyone feels supported as we move forward?
So here, a common theme there. So I want you to think about, I'm going to put you back in your rooms and try to address at least one of the questions. And the one, if we don't get to all three, we can just address it here. So I'm going to recreate the room. How should Deborah address the resistance to change? Now remember, she's trying to infuse technology, right? And so that was actually what I put next to, remember when I said, what area do you want to work on? And mine was I think it was adaptability, and I put technology is a little dicey for me, as you can see. But Kim, so what do you guys think Deborah could do?
Hannah and I were really on the same page on all this. We both just had lots of ideas, but when people start pushing back, you need not to put up that wall. All of a sudden it's like, oh, you're criticizing my ideas. You need to say, that's a great, we need to talk about that. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. And in fact, if you know someone on your team that's always the glass is half empty, then maybe that's the person you could put in charge of brainstorming that topic.
Yes,
so guys, we're bigger than this problem. Let's help these people out. They don't have internet, they don't have a car. What can we do to help them out? And put them on, and you say, you are the committee head, you figure this out, and then we'll bring this back next week.
And that gets at that collaborative decision making. Look at you shining over there.
Hey, Hannah was my teammate.
Yeah, and jazz hands for Hannah.
Hannah.
All right, so who was in rooms 4 through 6? So what communication strategies can Deborah use to ease concerns and to build buy-in? Because she said she felt that people may not trust her because of this change to a new way of doing things, but innovation is key. And resourcefulness, we know those are traits for highly effective nonprofit leaders. Who was in room 4, 5, or 6? Kendall, were you in one of those rooms?
I was in room 6, yes.
Oh, gotcha. So what did you guys talk about?
We talked about how to partner people who enjoyed in person versus online together to start learning about it, so that people who are very good at online learning can help the people who are more opposed to it figure out how that looks, maybe structured in a different way with shorter classes for those who have shorter attention spans and more breaks to make sure that you're not losing people and it's still as effective as it is in person. And I was with Crystal and Caitlin.
And oh, look at you, Courtney. Are you exercising?
I'm outside with my toddler.
Good for you. So were you?
I wanted to share something that we also talked about was she's needing buy-in for folks and talked about the needs of those being served. And so perhaps surveying the folks that are receiving the adult literacy courses to be able to get their feedback. So that way you have the buy-in and say, these are the experiences and stories of the folks that we're serving, and how can we best serve them by making this a virtual option?
Right. And then what you just shared, Courtney, falls in the line with question number 3. How can we as leaders ensure a smooth transition when we're implementing new initiatives and we're trying new things out? And I love what you just said, Kendall, about leaning into it, right? And this brings our session to a close, but I'm going to give you some food for thought, ladies, and thank you for a very engaging evening and workshop. Couple things. Let me go to SlideShare and then we're going to log off. So strategies to build and grow by. You want to build, oh gosh, I'm getting that error message. Remember I told you when I go into slideshow mode, I always get an error message that the recording is paused. So I'm going to just have to share it this way. Okay. So some things to live and grow by as we exit out and start our day. Some of us are just haven't even had dinner yet. So as league leaders and personal leaders in the workspace and in our families, you want to build and sustain a motivated league. So continue to build and keep and cherish those people that we have and to grow new leaders. You want to honor feedback, ladies, and always be looking out for talent. We recruit and we bring those folks to help our communities through our leagues and our communities and families. And pursue innovation. Ladies, I made a note that many of us had a struggle with resiliency. So you guys are going to have to make sure you continue to press yourselves, just like tonight, right? Joining this workshop, and then hold each other accountable in a nice way, as was already shared, right? Very gently and lovingly, because care is important. So your homework, ladies, I want you to take an actionable next step, and we're gonna sign off. First and foremost, you wrote down your, you can scroll back up to the chat earlier tonight and look at those 5 categories, even copy and paste if you want, or just take a picture and look at the areas where you scored yourself the lowest. I want you to work and to continue to grow on that, right? And then what I want you to do, always take leadership assessments. They're online, they're free. You can just Google leadership assessment and see where you fall at, right? In communication and trust, etc. And you encourage your league members to do that. Develop mentoring and training opportunities for people in your league and in your communities that you can pull into some of this work that we saw in those examples and those scenarios. And strengthen communication and collaboration, and always create opportunity. And our president is very good about doing surveys, feedback loops. I love two of you said one-on-one conversations and scratching that surface and getting at real issues. And most importantly, make sure that we're always providing opportunity for people to grow based on needs. Not just generic training, but find out what your league needs and what your community needs, and make sure that we address it in that fashion. I want you to think about key takeaways. If you could put a key takeaway in the chat while you're doing that, just one nugget that you got from tonight. I want to remind you that we have resources on the national website, and there's a folder for social media resources that has tons of information about nonprofit leadership and ways that you can empower and grow and have impact. The Junior League has an approach to community impact. So please take advantage of those resources. And I'll share my information with you. If you want to reach out to me, I'm the chair of the Prince George's County, Maryland Personal and Professional Leadership Development Committee. And my email is pshetley@shetleenterprises.com. And ladies, the sun is still out. Go outside and enjoy this outside air if you have an opportunity to do that. And I just really want to thank you for being with us tonight, because this work we're doing, we're changing lives and we're changing our communities. So enjoy your evening, ladies, and we'll try to figure out a way for you all to get access to this PowerPoint in case you want to use some of these things with the groups that you're working with, or you want to use some of those scenarios. They're on YouTube, so you can easily use them. Have a good night. I enjoyed you all. It was fun.